Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing another knife review on a discontinued knife, but one of my favorite knives ever. This is going to be on the previous gen, or I should say second gen? Somewhere around there. I'll get into that in a minute. Cold Steel Recon 1. This one happens to be in the Tonto point, or Tanto, however you say that. I say Tonto. Plain edge. Hard to find the plain edge old Recon ones. You usually find the partially serrated ones, and they're considerably cheaper than the plain edges. Plain edges are just more popular across the board, which is kind of odd. I heard a long time ago that SOG, this is like maybe almost a decade ago now, but their partially serrated and fully serrated models sell better than their plain edge models. I don't know how current that information is. That was nearly 10 years ago, but interesting. Anyway, this is one of my favorite knives ever. Really love it. I've finally stumbled upon the exact one I wanted, the plain edge Tonto in good condition. Old model Recon 1 with the Ultra Lock. Let's start off with the specs. Overall length 9.25 inches, the handle length is 5.25 inches, the blade coming in at 4 inches on the nose. I didn't measure the cutting edge, but you can see it's slightly shorter than 4 inches, probably like 3.9, something like that, 3.85. It weighs 6.68 ounces, so it's a little bit heavier than the Recon 1, which I think, don't quote me on it, I think it's 4.2 ounces. I will annotate right there what its actual weight is. It's considerably thicker than the new Recon 1. With a big old FRN backspacer, it looks like right there. We have G10 handle scales. Rough texturing on there, but this is an old knife. It could be 15 years old. Who knows how old it is. I don't know when this one was made in particular. So eventually the G10 softens with use. Just feels like a medium to finer grit sandpaper. Tip-up carry pocket clip is swappable to the left side. This is the style pocket clip Cold Steel used a long time ago. I kind of like it. It's ventilated, squared off, simple. Used to be all black, but as you can see, it's been worn away. Old model AK-47 right here, also featuring the Ultra Lock. Same pocket clip as you can see right there. So really the big difference between this one and the new Recon 1 is how much more thick it is, and the fact that it has the Ultra Lock right here instead of the Triad Lock. The Triad Lock being a lock backing mechanism with a stop pin integrated into it, versus the Ultra Lock basically being Cold Steel's version of the Benchmade AXIS lock. It's a side actuating cylinder, pretty much, on a torsion, I almost want to call it a spring, but I don't think it's technically a spring. It's a torsion bar that coils around a mechanism inside of the knife. You can't see it because it's embedded within the tang of the blade right there. But if you look really closely, you just see it, the cylinder move into place. There's an integrated stop pin, an internal stop pin within the tang. Very strong locking mechanism. It's a lot like the Benchmade AXIS lock, pretty much the same exact thing. Side actuating, you can disengage it without touching the blade at all, so you can do this whole thing. I have the blade tightened down quite a bit, so it doesn't move as freely, but I just tightened out all the side-to-side play. No up and down, no side-to-side. Actually, there's a little bit of side-to-side. But a folding knife does not have to lock like a bank vault. I mean, what are you using your knives for? So, basically, is it better than the new one? No, it's just different. It's bulkier, it's a little bit more cumbersome, it is heavier, so overall I'm going to say, no, I would say the new Recon 1s are an improvement over this one. However, this one does win when it comes to speed. I will say it actuates faster, you can flick it open faster, because the locking mechanism has less friction on the blade there, versus the lockback knives typically are considered very stronger, inherently considered stronger, just because there's more force going on the blade. However, you do usually require two hands to close them, and you need a good amount of wrist flick to open them because they don't have a detent. There's no pressure to build up. You have to release it, and then with the right timing, flick it open. It's not really a big deal. They're very similar as far as speed goes. It's not huge, but I will say the Ultra Lock is a little bit faster, and I do prefer it. I like how it's side actuating. It's just, I don't know. Both ambidextrous, though. I do like the shape of this one. It's a little bit less extreme, more simple. There's not any obvious choils like the new one has. Not quite as ergonomic, though. It's a little bit bulky. However, I do like bulkier knives. I like thick knives. I like having a lot to hold on to. I prefer them over the slimmer knives. But I like slim knives too. I like all knives for all different reasons. However, if anything, I do prefer this one a little bit. It's just not quite as ergonomic despite being thicker. There's nothing for my thumb to do right here. There's no jimping or anything. There's no thumb ramp. It feels just like there's an unfinished cut off piece of material right there. My thumb just kind of freely does whatever right here. You can see the blade doesn't really match up with the handle. There's no contour lines accommodating to it or anything like that. It's just a blade stuck in the middle right there. There's nothing wrong with that. This is me just picking apart the knife and trying to find things to deliberately complain about. These are things they improved with the new Recon 1. And when I say new, I'm talking 2000, I almost cut myself. Don't Don't do this with your fingers. Sorry, I'm looking through the camera. I don't have depth perception. I won't do that again. When I say new Recon 1, I'm talking, I want to say 2010? This is early 2022 when I'm filming this. It's not so much a new knife anymore, the new Recon 1. But when those first came out, they had G10 AUS 8A blade steel, just like this one was. And I say, in the beginning of the video, I mentioned this is the second gen Recon 1 possibly, because the first Recon 1 was the same thing as this, except it had an FRN handle instead of G10. You can find those floating around somewhere. They're considerably lighter than this one. I don't know why they switched to the G10. G10, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger. By the way, it has flush-mounted, non-skeletonized steel liners in there. Haven't cleaned this baby in a really long time, so it's getting dusty. I'll clean it later. But I really like this stuff. You can find these things in this. This is considered good condition, I will say. You can see there's definitely a lot of scuffs here, but the coating is still pretty much all on the blade. There's no obvious, huge scrapes of the Teflon coating coming off there, or what they call the Tough X coating. It's Teflon, essentially. Underneath the blade, I believe, is a stonewash finish, actually, which helps in rust resistance, but the coating will also help rust resistance even more. I like coated blades. I think they're cool looking, and I also like how they're just more corrosion resistant because there's a coating on there. So the big advantage this one has over the new Recon ones, let's just say, is the speed of the locking mechanism. And if you prefer the thicker handles, it has that going for it too. Disadvantage, it is heavier, it is bulkier, it's chunkier, it's a little bit more cumbersome. And if you want to talk about the new Recon ones, which have the CTS BD1 stainless steel instead of the AUS 8A stainless steel, yeah, I would say this steel is not as good. AUS 8A is cheaper, however, that does make it more affordable. The newer Recon ones have risen in price for that very reason. In fact, this is just about a year ago, I think they upgraded their steel yet again. I think they upgraded it to S35VN. That's another upgrade above that one, which will drive the price up a little bit higher. So I would call this the second gen Recon one right here. How about that? It's kind of difficult to keep track of these knives, but you have to find the exact model number, which I put in the title. We have a thumb disc right here instead of a thumb stud. You can see some texturing on there. Works every single time. I have no complaints about it, but obviously they changed it probably for a good reason. A lot of pins going into this bad boy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you count the pivot screw there, we got six pins holding this baby together. Again, big old backspacer right there. I like how the stop pin is enforced by this backspacer right here, which is something Cold Steel does. They also did that to their Tylite. I don't know what other knives they did that with, but basically I think it acts as extra strength, as extra support for that stop pin. Because not only do we have the big old stainless steel tempered stop pin right there, it is also enforced by a backspacer that happens to be screwed in with these 5 screws right here. There's a lot of pressure right there. That's a lot of force. That's a lot of support helping against positive force on the blade. So that's pretty impressive right there. It's not going to disengage on you that way. How strong is the Ultra Lock? It's strong. Benchmade did tests on their AXIS lock, which essentially is the same thing, and they withstood a lot of weight, a lot of negative force. It's force on the spine. Took, I think, maybe 600 or 700 pounds before it finally gave out, something like that. So you can be rest assured it's not going to disengage on you. However, Cold Steel did upgrade, let's just say, to the Triad lock, which is argued to be stronger. Carries fine. When you get these new, the texture, or when you got these new, the texture was pretty rough on these G10 handle scales, so it was a little bit rough on your pocket, opening in and out. But with wear, with use, it just feels like any other knife. G10 texture softens pretty fast. I love G10, but I wish it was permanent. It's not. The texture on it softens with use pretty readily, actually. Pocket clip's pretty low riding. You have a lot poking out of your pocket right there. And the one good thing about it is that it's easier to get to the knife, just a little bit. You have an extra inch of length right there to grip onto the knife, rip it out of your pocket, and engage the locking mechanism, opening it up. But I'm sure they got complaints about that, or they knew something was wrong, which is why the newer model, they rose the pocket clip up a good inch or so. So it's a little bit more covert. Personally, I don't really care how low or how high riding the pocket clip is. It doesn't really bother me, but it bothers other people, so there you go. It's weird doing reviews like this, doing reviews of knives that were discontinued, that they already updated, they already made changes based on what people were saying, most likely. Because I'm like, oh, I wish they would do this, I critique this, I'll critique that, but the thing is they already addressed these things many, many years ago, so I'm just kind of doing a quick little overview of what this knife was if you've ever wanted to see one. There's not much else to say about it. It's one of my favorites. There's a huge novelty there. If you can find these in this condition, they're going to run you maybe around $100. If you find these brand new in box, $250. If people may ask for more, I wouldn't pay any more than that, honestly. I don't think they're worth that much. But they will go up in value. These will continue to get lost, continue to get damaged, continue to get destroyed as time goes on. So these are only going to get more and more rare. These old cold steels are becoming more and more collectible. They're not like vintage or anything. They're not extremely expensive or sought after yet, but you never know. In time, they might just be. So anyway, that's it. I really like the blade shape on this. It's like a spear point Tonto versus the new Tonto they went with. I like them both, but this one I like a little bit better. I like the almost symmetrical shape we have going right here. Very strong, very cool. Yeah, very simple design, but very functional. I really like the old model Recon one. It's one of my favorites. So anyway, that's it. Quick little overview of this bad boy. Thanks for watching.